So I'm going to start speaking about SeaLights test optimization value specifically for the Katalon customers on the call, or the ones that are considering Katalon, or even SeaLights customers on the call, that might consider also embedding Katalon in their pipelines. So what you would gain is first and one of the most important, you would reduce your time to market. And that can be achieved, by optimizing your long cycles, whether it's in Katalon or even other testing frameworks. But the thing is that once you use SeaLights test optimization, you can optimize any of your test environments, any of your test stages, and with that, really reduce the whole testing or the whole delivery cycle, and increase your release cadence. We have customers that had 3 months cadence, and now they are delivering on a weekly cadence. Discussing how you would shorten your testing cycles and what you would gain for that. It's mainly for, even if you have manual testing cycles, it's a huge decrease of cost of your delivery, and specifically ability to scale up with existing resources. And another thing is about test effectiveness, and how would you improve your test effectiveness with our machine learning engine, which is test impact analytics. And the thing is that in some cases, when test cycles are so long, and many organizations, I saw it with some of our customers, they in some cases they cannot test all the releases. So it's in those cases they would even skip some tests, and that's a high risk. So with the ability to let SeaLights test optimization to select the right test and the relevant test for every execution, and run the relevant test in a shortened cycle, would really increase the effectiveness of the test that will be selected. Same goes for if selection, manual selection has to be made with our smart selection. You would really increase the confidence level when something is going to be released, and the whole selection is fully automated. Now, drilling down and talking about the selection mechanism, it's based on machine learning technology, as I said, for building those recommendations. The way it works is that we are mapping every single test to the actual code, the application code that it's running through. And when I'm speaking about application code, it's any layer. So even a UI test running through the front end, and then traveling in between several backend, we map every single test to all the different activities in all the different layers, all the different services. So it's based on real coverage, and also automatic identification of the changes. So the recommendation that is being created is very, very accurate. And the thing is that you do not really need to run all tests at all times. And we know how to basically skip those tests that are not relevant for a given build, based on the changes made and the identification of the changes that we have, and providing an effective risk-based testing by running only tests that really have impact on the change. And with that, shortening the execution cycles. And this is available both for automated tests as well as manual tests, and any automated framework that you would have, and any manual testing that you would have. We can shorten everything, and this is mandatory in order to reduce the end-to-end delivery cycle time. Now, speaking about what do we select, and here the main thing is that you have to have very high confidence of the fact that it's very accurate, and understanding of what we select would build this confidence. And the first type of test that we are selecting are impacted tests, and those tests are the ones that are testing or historically tested the areas of code that change for a given build. Okay, so given the fact you have tests, we would select those tests around the changes and maximize the coverage around among all the tests that you have around those changes. And then, regardless of the changes, we would bring into the recommendation list all the tests that recently failed. Why? Because they might fail again, and we would need to double check them. Okay, so we cannot take a risk by ignoring those tests, and those tests are being added to the recommendation list. And another type of selection made is when you have dependencies between tests. So if we selected one test, we would also bring all the tests that are dependent on it into the recommendation list. If we selected something and for some reason the CI didn't trigger it, we would keep recommending those tests in future builds with other selections and other recommendations that we will create, and new tests. As we do not still have historic data on those tests, and they might fail for good reasons, we would also bring those into the recommendation list. And all in all, this list would include all the tests with even the tiniest probability of a failure. And the main thing is that we would skip all the other tests without compromising on quality. And this is really important because all the other tests have no probability of a failure. And that's the key here. Now, talking about test impact analytics and the selection is available for any automated frameworks, but also for any manual test. And in many cases, there is a combination between automated and manual activities, and you can optimize all the different stages. And those automated frameworks, even proprietary frameworks that you built in your organization, we also have public APIs that easily can build, the integration with any automated frameworks. Same as we did with Katalon. We use those APIs, and in very few days, we integrated SeaLights with Katalon. Also, given the fact that Katalon has this dynamic test suites module built in. Now, speaking about some use cases, really interesting use cases that we learned from our customers of optimizing their executions. First is around hotfixes, and specifically for hotfixes, there is a very limited time frame that teams can really test their systems. In many cases, those are manual testing teams, expert teams that get a task, get release notes, understand how they should test. In many cases, they would do some estimations of which tests they should run in this given limited time frame. In some cases, they might do mistakes, but with SeaLights test optimization, they get the list of all the tests that they have to run. And again, two things. One is that we are maximizing the coverage around the changes, so they release with more confidence. And second, they can really even push the time frame even further to be very, very limited. Another interesting use case is around efficiency, and specifically for regression testing cycles. So in many organizations, what we learn is that regression testing cycles are so long that you don't always have the luxury of running those regression tests over daytime. So it's running overnight, in some cases over the weekend. So with test optimization, you can then start running some partial regression cycles on demand per build, having only the important or needed regression tests to be executed, and even have both. Have partial regression cycles during the day and full regression cycle overnight or over the weekend. So with that, the efficiency and the feedback loop back into the dev team is increasing dramatically. Talking also about reducing the context switching of developers, moving into other tasks and then getting feedback from those regression tests too late, and then they need to do some context switching. So we are helping those dev teams to get feedback really fast for their important tests. And then about cost, specifically for manual testing. So manual testing cycles, we see usually long cycles over a week time, 2 weeks time, at the end of the cycle just before releasing. That can be decreased dramatically, and reducing the manual testing cycles time in many times translated to a reduction or very high reduction of cost. And very common use case is around time saving, and as I was talking about, reducing time to market. But in most cases, for any test cycles, specifically those long test cycles, saves a lot of time. Now, talking about a real-life use case and a large accounting firm that both Katalon and SeaLights running together there. The background was that this firm was in a process of building their standardizing pipeline as part of a very large transformation project. And they selected several leading testing frameworks, as well as built or selected the best CI/CD automation platforms. When they designed it, the challenge was, how would they create one pipeline that would fit all teams and quality needs? So they selected, the most or the leading testing frameworks, and Katalon is one of them. And they used SeaLights to optimize all those selected testing frameworks. And then also having SeaLights be embedded inside their pipelines to provide quality analytics as part of the pipeline, and be able to have quality governance be embedded inside those pipelines. And now when onboarding all teams into this new pipeline, it's an easier, let's say, selling point of this team to all the teams that are, considering on jumping in and onboarding into the new standardized pipeline. So with that, they're basically achieving quality at speed.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, all.